I'll start with number one, and that's leveling up, and this concept of, taking yourself to the next level. And that can mean a lot of different things for a lot of different people, whether that's with respect to your career, your relationships, you know, personal things, professional things. It could be any sort of things, but we're always looking to get to the next level. And regardless of what any of those things are, whether it's personal or business related, in my opinion, there are three key concepts to really focus on. And they are development, enhancement, and growth. And what I mean by that is, when you're talking about development, you're talking about something new, right? So you're talking about developing new skills, developing new relationships, developing a new perspective. And so those are the sort of things that I refer to when I talk about development, what's new and what you're doing for yourself that you haven't previously experienced before, right? So like I said, it's new skills, new people that you're hopefully developing good, healthy relationships with, things like that. And then you have enhancement, which is in reference to what you currently have, your current relationships, your current skill sets, right? So, a skill set is one that you learn, but then you continuously work on and refine and get better at. So when we're talking about enhancing skills, we're talking about, putting in the reps and putting in the work to enhance your current skill set. Same thing with relationships. We have existing relationships. Usually it's those family relationships that are some of the toughest, right? And so that's a constant, work in progress towards enhancing those relationships. Now, they may not always work out, but what we're talking about here is that not necessarily that the end result, but just enhancing the quality of your relationships. And that may mean a limited relationship, right? Versus an expansive one. Also, enhancing your experiences and your perspectives. Just like we were talking about developing new perspectives, you can enhance your current perspectives. You can believe in one certain thing or in a number of different things, but you can add to that perspective with new information and new experiences. And then we're talking about growth. Those sort of two things lead to growth. So when you're developing new skills, new relationships, and enhancing your current skill set, enhancing current relationships, that leads to growth. And specifically, growing into the person that you want to become, right? So, not just growing physically, not just growing at work in terms of promotions, not just growing in terms of relationships where you reach formal steps, for example, a couple that is dating, then they, take it to the next step, engagement, marriage. I'm talking about, growing into a different person that you were, 3 months ago, 2 months ago, a month ago, 6 months ago, whatever it is. But it's that goal of becoming the person that you want to become, growing into that person. So yeah, that was one post, and that's in regards to leveling up, professional or personal, and focusing on those three concepts. The other was me talking about the one thing that I do without fail on a daily basis. And because there's a lot of things that we do routinely, some of which are intentional, others are not intentional. Obviously, the intentional routines are the best because they're the ones that you've thought through and have determined, will, greatly benefit you, as you go about your day. And we always are looking to refine and improve our routines, make sure that we're doing things that, will only make us better and help us out. But sometimes, depending on the day, things may not always work out the way you'd like it to, the way you'd plan it to, the way, you're throwing off your routine. But there is one thing that I do without fail, and it's because it's easy. It's easy, and because of the benefits behind it, and that is drinking a glass of water as soon as I wake up. I mosey on over to the burpee that we got. The burpee, if you're not familiar, is this water filtration container, and it's really good. I would personally recommend it. And I have a full glass of water, and I stay in that moment, and in that moment I drink the entire glass. I don't fill it up and then have a sip and then drink a little bit later and then finish it in an hour. I just have that glass. There's a few different reasons why. So just from a physical standpoint, you're relatively dehydrated after having slept 6 to 8 hours, hopefully, ideally. And so while you may not be dehydrated as if you were just kind of trekking through a desert, you're not as hydrated as you were when you were awake. And so hydrating yourself is a good start, because when you're dehydrated, You're not thinking straight. You're not thinking as clearly. You kind of have this foggish, feeling in your brain, in your mind. And so having a glass of water not only helps hydrate you, which helps you think clearly, but it also, and this is the other benefit, it also kind of kickstarts your digestive system. I feel, once I have that glass of water, I feel even sort of things kind of kicking around, and I'm good to go and use the bathroom. Those are the two primary reasons. One, it's because it's a great way to hydrate yourself when you wake up. And second, it helps, the digestive process, which in turn helps remove waste and toxins from your body. But the third thing, to a lesser extent, it's a great habit to have. It's so easy. And if you are familiar with how habits work, there's this whole science behind habits. But if you want to build good habits and build habits that are sustainable, you want to get familiar with the concept of habit stacking, and which means, having one easy habit, let's say a glass of water, that when that's done, it leads to the next habit. Like it triggers the next thing. That's what they mean by habit stacking. So for me, as soon as I have that glass of water, the next thing I do is I go into the bathroom. I take a shower, or, do number two. Depends on which one is more urgent, or depending if number two is a little bit urgent. But that to me is like the next thing. As soon as I have the glass of water, I'm in the bathroom. The third post this week was, a little bit more philosophical in nature, and that was age-old question, is it better to be feared or loved? I think it was Machiavelli, right, that had posed that question and answered that question in his book, The Prince. And he makes the argument that, hey, if you can be both, great, but pretty much it's impossible to be both. And if you are both, you pretty much reached like the highest level of life, to be held in esteem, but to be held in love and respect, but also at the same time, whomever has those feelings for you, they can hold you in esteem, they can hold you in love, but in the back of their mind, like, well, I can't mess with this guy either, or gal. So to have that is like the highest level of living. However, the question is, right? One or the other. And so his argument that it's better to be feared. And we're talking from like a leadership standpoint, or I guess in a relationship or leadership standpoint, his argument is that it's better to be feared. Why? Because love is like internally based, and that love is fickle. And people, those are feelings that can easily be turned on and off. Maybe not easily turned off, but we know they can be turned off in a moment's notice. Things change. And so his argument is that fear is more predictable and really it doesn't change, is not as susceptible to changing or as fickle as love is, because if you remain the same, if your base character stays the same, then you can sort of maintain that level of fear that others would maybe have for you. So his argument is better to be feared than loved. But if you can work towards both, that's the highest level of living. The three mistakes that you can avoid when you're trying to lose weight. And I see the balance of fear and love, so I'll circle back on that. But those three mistakes, in my opinion, when people are really trying to lose weight and they're busting their ass in the gym and they're eating, right or whatnot, or they think they do. But there's three things that I think are very common and that really sabotage people's efforts towards losing weight. And that is, number one, it's eating late. I mean, I think it's super common to eat late, and you don't even have to eat like a bunch, like a whole heavy meal at 10 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night to really feel the adverse effects. Any sort of eating, anything that's going to trigger the digestive system is going to work against you, because if you're eating something and then you go right to bed in an hour, even 2 hours, it's going to be hard for you to fall into a deep, deep sleep, because your body is still digesting whatever it is that it's eaten. And so the digestive process isn't great. You're lying flat on your back. It's really hard for your food to digest. And second, because it's so disruptive, it does interrupt your sleep. And so that would be the second thing. It's like that leads into the other aspect of it, which is poor sleep. And when you have poor sleep, there's a number of things that happen to the body that make it susceptible to eating a lot of crap. Number one, you're just starving for more carbs. Your body thinks that, it starts confusing hunger for fatigue. And so you also tend to overeat when you have poor sleep. And so eating late, which sabotages your digestive process, doesn't allow you to get rid of the stuff that you need to get rid of, leads to poor sleep, which then, impacts how you approach the day. You're more susceptible to snacking, you're susceptible to overeating, you're susceptible to starving for carbs. And then the third is that, the gym diet ratio is off, right? So I mentioned that someone's really busting their ass at the gym and they believe they're eating correct or whatnot, but that ratio is off. The amount of energy and attention given to, let's say, the gym is usually what is a big issue in terms of not getting results, because someone thinks that the level of pain and sweat that they're going through is what's supposed to bring the results, but the reality is that it should be really 80% of your energy and attention focused on what you consume. The gym is really complementary in terms of losing weight. If you're really busting your ass at the gym and you're not getting results, you really have to have an honest look at what you're eating and what you're consuming and where your sleeping habits are. I'm circling back to the balance of fear and love. What are ways to accomplish that? It's tough. I think the first thing that's helpful for anybody is to be honest with themselves and be who they are, right? I feel like whenever this question has been posed, is it to be better or fear and love? Usually it's coming from a place of someone's trying to decide what kind of person they want to be. How do I want people to look at me, right? Do I want people to love me or do I want people to fear? And I think if you're already going down that road, what do you want your persona to be or your ego to look like? And, I think if you focus on that, if you choose one or the other, it's not going to be genuine and it's not going to be effective anyway. You're not going to get fear. You're not going to be feared or you're not going to get any love. And so I think really it comes down to just being honest with yourself, being comfortable with yourself, doing what you believe is the right thing to do, having strong convictions and strong principles. I think when you have conviction, maybe that doesn't strike fear into people's heart, but I think people feel when someone has conviction. And so I think people respect that. And so I think at a minimum, you want to build strong convictions. And I think from a love standpoint, the biggest thing that I've learned in my life so far is that in order to be loved, you have to give love. I mean, it is first about giving love to receive love. And even if you're not receiving love, immediately you have to continue giving love. So in my opinion, I would just focus on those things, give a lot of love, build convictions, and, have a set of principles that you adhere to. And I think how things play out and how people respond to you will just be the way it's supposed to be. Now, the other topic was gratitude. This was part of a series of how to, mentally train yourself. And that was the third part of it, was practicing gratitude. There's really two aspects to gratitude that I spoke to in the reel. And that was the appreciation, right? So it's the appreciation of whatever it is, the appreciation of something small that someone does for you, right? For example, I was saying something as simple as holding the door for you. The other aspect is the fact that it's free. We're not talking about material items. We're talking about, appreciating the very small things in life that don't have a monetary value attached to it. And that's what gratitude is. And this is important, I believe, from a leadership standpoint, because most leaders are ambitious and there is something that, they're looking to go after. But it's hard to really be in a place to go after something or attain something that you want without really appreciating what you already have. I think you need to be in a good spot, in a good place where you appreciate what you have in order for you to get where you want to go to. And so one of the things that I do, because practicing gratitude, if you think about the words practicing gratitude, it's not something you just have, it's something you practice, and it's something you're gracious. And so, and anything that you practice at, there's a craft sort of attached to it. And so, how do you practice gratitude? And so one of the things that I do is, I write in a journal. And, I know those sort of things can be you hear no, it's really impactful. It has a lot of impact. And so about a year and a half ago, I bought the 5-Minute Journal, which is a really, really popular book, I guess. But it's really popular, the 5-Minute Journal. It's not a book, but it's a really popular. And because it's so easy to use. So pretty much it's a journal. And it looks like it's a journal type. It's pretty much broken into where every single day you can write down certain thoughts in the morning and at night. And there's a few components to it, but the one component that's relative to this conversation is to think about 3 things that you are grateful for. And so that puts me in a place of having to really think. Some days it's really easy to think about, like, oh yeah, this was like, I'm super grateful for this. But other days I had to really think about it. It was probably on the heels of a bad day. It was probably coming off of like a really busy day, and I haven't had any moment to reflect on what just happened. And so that journal sort of puts me in a place to really sit down and think about what was really, really amazing today. And nothing really spectacular happens on a daily basis. I think for me, and maybe for like most people, it really puts you in a spot to think about the really smallest things. So there'll be days I'm like, I really, really enjoyed that cup of coffee. That was good. Even something like that, you think about it, just because of where your mind goes, it just brings a smile to your face. And when you smile, that's gonna literally have an impact on your attitude and how you feel. So that's what I do to practice gratitude, to help me practice gratitude. And that's use that 5-minute journal, and on a nightly and a daily basis, write down 3 things that I'm super grateful for. So yeah, other than that, there was a few photos that I posted. I hope you enjoyed those as well, just to kind of switch up the content a little bit, switch up the grid, so you don't just have reels. Like, for example, you'll see, I think there's one that I posted today. I had gone over to a Renaissance fair in Pennsylvania, and it was nice to be out. It feels like autumn, so it's just nice to be out and enjoy some time with some loved ones. So earlier in the week, I was by a river that's not far from where I live, and that's where I'll usually spend some time in the morning, taking a walk. So just some context to those photos. So I hope you enjoyed this edition of this week's live, and tune again next week. I'll be back at the same time. Usually I'll try for 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, but sometimes, depending on what's going on, it could be a little late. Oh, we do have one question. Was today a cheat day for you at the fair? Did I eat something I wish I hadn't? Yes. Did I regret it? No. I guess I don't like the concept of cheat days. They've been it's so thrown out there. Cheat days, like, if you do a cheat day, how can you not feel guilty from having a cheat day? So I'm gonna go and not call it a cheat day. I'm gonna call it, hey, did I have something that I don't usually eat? Yes. And it wasn't that bad anyway. What was it? It was like a hoagie and some meat, and I'm supposed to eat meat on Sundays anyway, so it's all good. No, don't call it a cheat day. It was just a day that I had something that I wouldn't normally eat. So I think with that, I will wrap it up for this week. Like I said, I hope you enjoy it, and we'll talk again soon.